So without further ado, I want you to join me in welcoming our leader, my friend, our Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau.
Thank you, Ahmed, my friend, for pulling together such a great group. Thank you, all of you, for being here tonight. Thank you, Ali, for being part of bringing people together. But mostly, thank you for stepping up and coming forward in this challenging moment to support a political party, to support our democracy. That needs to be said. It's not automatic. There's plenty of different things any of you could be doing on a Friday evening, and you chose to come up to show your support for Ahmed, for the party, for me, and for the future of the country we're trying to build. And it's extremely important this time because things are challenging. Things are challenging all around the world. We see geopolitical events and tragedies on our TV screens every night. Many of us have family in places around the world that are extremely worried. We see challenges of global inflation, of interest rates. We see the challenges of climate change. We see the continued disruption of supply chains, and impacts of the pandemic continue to resonate. There's a lot for people to be worried about and anxious about, given the pace of change, given everything that's going on right now. And it is natural human nature, when things are difficult, to hunker down, to want to hide a bit, to protect ourselves, to protect our family, and just wait for the storm to blow over. But that's not what you've done. That's not what Canadians do. We know when there are tough times, that's when we have to step up. That's when we have to roll up our sleeves and look out for our neighbors. That's when we have to think about the challenges we're facing and how to solve them. Now, it's tempting as politicians sometimes to reduce complex problems to their most simple elements. A slogan you can put on a bumper sticker, a 7-second TikTok video, the kinds of things that'll make it look like you have an answer to things, but what you're really doing is just reflecting back and amplifying the anger, the frustrations, the anxiety that people are legitimately feeling. That's a very effective way of doing politics. Get people all worked up and divide them. Unfortunately, as effective as that is as a way of getting elected, it's not particularly effective when you want to actually solve the challenges and the problems we're facing. And that's where I disagree most with some of the right-wing, more populist movements that we're seeing around the world, and indeed in this country, that are very good at stirring up anger, at using misinformation and disinformation to get people all worked up, to point fingers, to lay blame, but not actually to offer any solutions. Particularly because the kinds of solutions that we're going to need as a society and as a world are not the kinds of things that can fit into a simple, catchy slogan. We're facing complex issues with complex causes and therefore complex solutions. We know, for example, that everything now is interrelated. Economic policy is social policy, is climate policy, is security policy. Climate change is impacting on people in ways that are undermining their economy, and so they're looking at migrating, putting pressure on international borders at the same time as people are worried of being able to support their families and build strong futures. There's no one easy way to solve for that. Unless, of course, you're listening to Conservatives, which their answer is spend less money as a government, invest less in our communities. Don't be there as much to support people. Vote against dental care for low-income Canadians. Vote against grocery supports. Vote against the kinds of measures that are going to move forward, like, for example, taking off the GST on rental constructions. These are things that are easy to say, but aren't actually going to solve things. From 2015, as a government, we've been focused on doing policy grounded in evidence, grounded in facts and data, and building a stronger economy that works for the middle class and people working hard to join it. That means growing the economy from the bottom up and from the middle out. Not the kind of trickle-down thinking that conservatives around the world continue to think is the right solution. Now, I know all of you have chosen to step up and contribute to a political party, so you're all doing reasonably well in your professional lives. But you all know that the best way to create a strong and robust and successful society is to make sure that the middle class in our communities is doing well, that people struggling with poverty actually have a path towards, economic independence and success so that they can purchase the homes and the products that you're creating. We need to build an economy that doesn't expect that, if you really help rich people, then poor people will eventually get jobs. That's what trickle-down is, and it's never worked anywhere it's been tried. That's why when we got elected in 2015, we started talking about things that we're a little less used to as a government. We started talking about gender equality and including women in the success of our country. We started talking about protecting the environment in very, very real ways and fighting climate change. We started talking about reconciliation and how important it is to work with Indigenous peoples to move forward in trust and partnership in protecting this world. We talked about growing inclusivity and diversity and protecting minority communities and welcoming in people from all around the world. That's what we spent a lot of years talking about in the beginning in 2015. And I had a lot of people saying, all those things are very nice, Justin, but when are you going to start talking about the economy? And anyone who asked me that question, to my mind, was proving that they didn't actually understand what makes for a strong economy today. The Canada Child Benefit, which lifted over 650,000 kids out of poverty and cut the poverty rate in half, and child care cut in half and on its way to $10 a day, those are not just social policies, those are economic policies. The addition of millions of women to the workforce over the past years, because of policies we put forward, has been great for the Canadian economy, particularly at a time of labor shortage. Making sure kids have an opportunity to get the very best out of a day's learning at school because they don't have an empty belly because they have new clothes for the beginning of the school year or after-school activities that they can go to. That is good for the future of our economy. Reconciliation with Indigenous peoples allows us to get more projects, whether it's lithium mines or natural gas pipelines that we're eventually going to be able to use for hydrogen, building more critical mineral production facilities across this country. These are things we need to do in partnership with the Indigenous peoples who are stewards of this land. And if we haven't rebuilt trust with them, we're not going to get things built. That's why reconciliation with Indigenous peoples is, yes, an economic issue for them and their communities. They should be able to contribute and succeed in the ways that they need to. But they also need to be partners in our success as we develop our natural resources and the extraordinary bounty we have as a country in hand with them. That's why reconciliation is part of the economic vision for a strong economy. And climate change. Conservatives, particularly back in 2015, would point out that, no, you can't just protect the earth, you have to build a strong economy. And they still thought there was a choice to be made between fighting climate change and protecting the planet and growing the economy. But what has become increasingly clear to everyone, except apparently MAGA conservatives, is that the only way to build a strong economy for the future is to fight climate change and protect the environment. Ahmed mentioned that Canada is now the third country in the world when it comes to foreign investment going into our country from the early part of this past year. Why is that? And by the way, that's in absolute terms. We're after the US and Brazil in terms of foreign investment. It's not even per capita. Per capita, we're way in front of all the rest of the G7 in terms of foreign investment. Why? It's because people are looking at Canada and seeing that we are innovating, we are creating more renewable energy and clean energy that people want to increasingly manufacture and sell around the world, our clean aluminum, our clean steel, our hydrogen, our opportunities to develop critical minerals in responsible and clean ways. These are the things that the world is looking for to be part of, and Canadians have that. Our strong social safety net, the investments we're making in healthcare, in dental care, in supports for strong, vibrant, diverse communities that welcome in people from around the world, well, that's something that companies around the world are desperate for. Labor shortages everywhere around the democratic world, everywhere around developed economies. Canada is the fastest growing in population country in the G7. Why? Because as other parts of the world have turned their backs on immigration or get more resistant to it, Canada knows that welcoming in people from around the world to grow our communities, to create great jobs and a great future for all Canadians is an incredible advantage right now. So anyone who is saying that, oh, all this talk about diversity, inclusion, and social programs, and women in the workforce, and environment, and protecting and supporting Indigenous peoples, when are you going to talk about the economy, doesn't understand that all along I was talking about the economy. And now 8 years in, that's exactly what we're seeing. Investments from companies like Volkswagen and Stellantis and Northvolt and Dow Chemical out in Alberta and E1 Moly making batteries in British Columbia. Michelin making huge investments in Nova Scotia. Hydrogen investments in Stephenville, Newfoundland and across the country. People are understanding that the economy and the environment go together. The reliability of Canadian manufacturing, of workers who show up, who return home to good communities with public transit and healthcare and supports and an optimistic view of the world and a stable, inclusive political and democratic society. These are the things that are the great advantages in the world that Canada has. This is what people are catching on to, and we're beginning to see it and feel it right now. Except, of course, for the fact that because of inflation, which is coming down, because of interest rates, which are too high and hopefully will be coming down in the coming year, people are still having a tough time of it. And that's why we've been stepping up as a government. While the Conservatives continue to say that we need to cut more, at the same time as they are angering people, we're going to keep being there to invest. Why? Two reasons. First of all, confident countries invest in themselves. Betting on Canadians, betting on our capacity to solve the challenges of the future is always a smart and safe bet. Mais en plus de ça, la deuxième chose, c'est que notre économie est dans une position de stabilité remarquable. On a le déficit le plus bas du G7. On a le ratio dette PIB le plus bas du G7 et on a gardé notre cote AAA. And this is one thing that the Conservatives, when they keep saying, oh, you need to be more fiscally responsible, they don't understand that we are being fiscally responsible. We have the capacity and therefore the obligation to continue to invest in our future and our success. We have the lowest deficit in the G7. The best and lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7. So our investments as a share of our economy versus the debt is on a very sustainable path. And you don't have to take my word for it. The bond rating agencies that evaluate international economies have continued to maintain Canada as the third largest AAA rated economy in the world after the US and Germany. So we have a responsible plan fiscally, and we're investing in that brighter future we need. That's what we're busy doing. But right now, of course, people are worried. People are anxious. People are concerned about the future. But let us remember what Mr. Poilievre seems to have forgotten. Fear doesn't solve problems. amplifying anxiety and worry doesn't place us in a position to innovate and create that better path. What does is remembering who we are as Canadians. That we've faced great challenges before, but the way we've gotten through them is always by rolling up our sleeves and leaning in for each other. Back at the end of World War II, when soldiers came home, we had a massive need and massive waves of immigration of people from across Eastern and Southern Europe coming to Canada. We had a massive need to build more housing. And that's what we did. The federal government put forward programs and initiatives that unlocked the capacity of Canadians to build housing, to build stronger communities, and to create this country that we know and love today in so many different ways. So we have faced housing crises before. And we solved them then, and we're going to solve them now. What we put forward is a range of programs, because we know there's not one single bullet to solve the housing crisis, is a range of things. A tax-free first home savings account that allow people to save up for tax-free for their down payments. We're moving forward the Rapid Housing Initiative that was spawned during the pandemic to get people off the streets and into homes, whether it was converted hotels or modular housing, as quickly as possible. And your very own Ahmed Hussein was a huge leader in generating and developing that has made a huge difference in cities across the country. The Rental Construction Financing Initiative, now rebranded as the Apartment Construction Loan Program, that we just added $15 billion to in investments to make sure that the math works for builders and developers to create affordable middle-income rental units. And not just 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom, but 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms for families that need it, because we know that's an important part of our growing communities and our growing societies. But we did more as well. The removal of the GST from rental construction was a huge element that is helping make the math work as well. And the housing accelerator that we've just created, $4 billion across the country, is designed to encourage and pressure municipalities to push past the not in my backyard NIMBYism that is so understandable in communities that are well established, as people don't want to see changes. But to say, no, 4 units as of right on every lot, 4-story buildings within walking distance of any transit hub, accelerated zoning, accelerated densification, accelerated processing and permitting. These are the kinds of things that are going to unlock Canadians' abilities to solve this housing crisis. Contrast that with the solution of the Conservatives, which consists of saying to municipalities, you better build more houses or else we're going to pull back funding that you need for public transit. That's not going to get a single house built. Picking fights might make you feel better. But asking people to do something they're not going to be able to do unless we help support them in doing that is not the way to solve the problems we're facing. And that really is the larger question we all have to ask ourselves right now, but what kind of country we are and what kind of country do we want to be? Are we a country that thinks rationally and responsibly about the challenges we're facing and looks to solve them by listening to each other, by watching what other countries are doing, by following the science and the evidence? Or are we looking to amplify the fears everyone has as a way of getting elected? We've seen very clearly what the Conservative Party of Canada is choosing as a path, and all of you are here tonight because you know there's a better way. We can continue to work together. We continue to learn from each other. We continue to invest in our communities and in those people who are building the future for our country. And we can know that even though the storm is raging right now and it's tough, if we stay steadfast and true to the values, the principles, and the stories that not just brought generations of people to this country, but that helps us every year get through the tough times that are winter, the tough times that are the spaces between our communities. Canadians got this. And we'll all be there together to make sure we get through this. Merci beaucoup, mes amis.
Thank you, Prime. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. And I just wanted to welcome all of you and once again to thank you for your support.